What what you view as normal for yourself may be the very thing that is making it difficult for you to make significant progress in your own pronunciation journey. I want to talk a little bit more about that. Good morning, guys. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to your daily pronunciation show coming at you at a different time because I'm not going to be available tomorrow morning. This is Wake Up America. Again, typically we're showing at sometime between 7 to 8 a.m. New York to make sure that you can get your 5 to 10 minutes of pronunciation practice for today. But today we got a little bit of an evening session just because, again, I won't be available. And I want to talk a little bit about how you identify. And when I say I want to talk about, hi, my name's Jeff, it rhymes with breath. It's one of the four keys to a natural sound in American English, including placement, pitch, breath, trying to weaken your consonant sounds, strengthen your vowel sounds. And this comes from a conversation I had with a student. It's a conversation I see, it can happen with male students too, but I see it a lot more often with female students. And it goes a little bit of something like this. One of the things that we talk about in American English is that to sound natural in American English, you need to use lower pitches. You need to use a lower placement. What does that even mean? Well, that means that like if you're used to kind of like talking up here like e, and I'm asking you to do down here like e, that's a pretty big shift, right? And so what we find is that in general in American English, the sounds are projecting from a lower position, which means that in general the pitches we're seeing in American English are also lower and also tend to have a lot more breath and things coming through, a lot more resonance, a lot more warmth. So, for instance, if you take a woman from the U.S. and you listen to how they speak in English, and then you take a woman from another country and you ask them to speak their language, um, what you will often find is that the other languages tend to be higher with less resonance, less warmth. It tends to be a shriller sound, higher in pitch than women speaking in American English. Okay, so what we are seeing, and this is true for men as well. Okay, in general for male speakers in the U.S. as well, you'll find that men are using a lower placement, more resonance, more breath. Okay, so these are just common characteristics of the language. If you're missing this, it can make it more difficult to sound natural in the language. Okay, the issue is that for some people, just based on how they choose to identify. Like, for instance, just ask yourself, like, if someone asks you, like, who are you in the definition you gave them, a lot of people define themselves by maybe their job or their role in the family, like maybe they're a dad or a mom or a grandparent. Maybe they do it by a hobby that they do, like an artist or something like that. Okay. I think we also kind of have a speech identity that we kind of hold on to as well, where it's like, this is me. This is how I talk. And anything else that isn't like that is not me. It is not how I talk. Which is interesting, right? Because we all have, I think we like the idea of ourselves having a single self, but the reality is no, we are all multitudes. We are all multiple selves. Kind of pulling from like Walt Whitman from that. So, for instance, we talk about examples like the way you talk to your mom is different than the way you talk to maybe your brother, which may be different than how you talk to your friends, which may be different than how you talk to your boss. And we can switch between all those oftentimes in a matter of minutes, right? It doesn't necessarily take that long to transform. But we still can get really attached to our own concept of self. For instance, you can see it, for instance, in the maybe if you have a car, the type of car you drive, or the type of car you don't drive, or the clothes you wear, or the clothes you don't wear, or how you do your hair, how you don't do your hair. Like these are all, choices we're making based on how we want the world to perceive us and how we perceive ourselves. What does this have to do with pronunciation? Well, it has to actually do a lot because if there's a feature of pronunciation in a second language that you're learning that doesn't align with your perception of self, it can be difficult for you to make the adjustment. So, to go back to our original example, something I see sometimes is maybe we have a female student who is like, I don't want to sound like a man. I don't want the low pitch. I don't want the resonance. I don't want the warm. I don't want that stuff because in my mind those things I associate with the other gender and I don't identify as that. And so and even if we're not even outwardly having that conversation, maybe those words are never actually spoken. But if we have that consciously or subconsciously in our mind, it can make it difficult. We don't allow ourselves to tap into the lower pitches. We don't allow ourselves to add the breath. We don't allow ourselves to add in the components that would actually allow us to achieve a more natural sound in the language. Okay? Because what we would actually find is that, maybe you normally dress one way, but if you change how you dress, you're still you. If you change the type of car you drive, you're still you. If you get a whole new job, you get fired and you change jobs, you're still you. And so, even if you change these aspects of pronunciation, you're like, you know what, I'm going to just experiment with these lower pitches a little bit. I'm going to experiment with adding a little bit of breath to my voice. You might find that you're still you too, right? And so, and this is true for any language. A common example is, or counter example, I should say, is like Japanese. I think in a lot of ways, Japanese is a language that's doing the opposite of what American English is looking for. I think it's especially true in terms of female speech. For instance, for those of you who watch like anime or things like that, think of like stereotypical female character in anime talking like super super excited. So what we see the opposite, right? It's almost like a caricature. It's almost like, okay, super high placement, really closed throat, and things like that. Okay. You, all this going back to just, depending on the language you're speaking, you're going to have to change some of your tendencies. Because if you're applying first language tendencies onto your second language because those first language tendencies feel comfortable to you, well, then is your job to stay comfortable or is your job to, change the manner in which you speak? So that's what our stream is about today. Asking yourself, how do you identify? And how is that identity working for your accent or working against your accent in terms of the change you seek to make? And I think the more you can investigate yourself or that aspect of yourself, the faster you'll be able to actually start reaching your pronunciation goals. Let me know your thoughts, guys. I'm sorry I won't be able to be with you in the morning, but hopefully this stream, for those of you who are asleep right now, but we'll catch this in the morning, hopefully this brings you some value. Once more, my name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath. It's one of the 4 keys to a natural sound in American English pronunciation, including placement, pitch, breath. Trying to weaken your consonant sounds, strengthen your vowel sounds. I will see you all later. I hope you have a good day. Have a good night and a good afternoon. Take care, guys.